Welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the K9 episode, Sirens of Ceres, written by Deborah Parsons and is directed by Daniel McEdam. He's a Sydney-born director who would later also direct episodes of the actual Doctor Who TV series. This episode is probably the first story in the series I actually enjoyed. Hooray, we finally got there. It might be terribly acted. It might be might look terrible. Story might be weak, but it actually has something to say. And it has meaning, it has purpose, it has a focus. It has a narrative flow. We finally got there in an end. A decent K9 episode. Hooray! Get the fucking banners out. We are bloody there. I've been waiting for this since I've heard about the show. We finally have a decent episode. Maybe too strong to say good. I mean, the stuff that's been plaguing the series is still there. The acting is all over the place. The directing is very weak, though, as I've said in previous episodes, that could mainly be because of the tight budget and the tight time schedules. I do not blame the director, especially when it is work on Doctor Who. So that is something to keep in mind. I'll talk about more like his directing style in this episode as well, because we need to talk about the directing style in this episode as well. But his work is mainly he gets to show off more in Doctor Who. But yeah, I actually had also ironically funny moments in this story, especially like this one scene where, actually we'll talk about that later on, but the story actually has a focus. It actually has a narrative focus point. It knows what it wants to do, and it does try to tell a story. And it actually takes advantage of the K9 world. I was going to say it takes advantage of K9 the series. However, that implies it takes advantage of K9 the character, which this story doesn't, because like most episodes in the series, K9 is inert. He is out of action, and it is really sickening to watch a story where he is again out of action after a handful of episodes. In fact, I think every episode so far, K9 has been out of action for the majority of the plot, only appearing as the end-all solution at the end of the story. Holy Christ. K9 is Goku. It has just occurred to me. That is mental. But what makes this story live up more than every other episode? Well, it's like I said, this story has a focus. Stories so far in K9, they've been based around characters, but it's doesn't know what it really wants to do with its characters, and the plot itself just seems to stumble in and is only just there to be a foil for our characters. However, here we are taking a central story for the character of Jodie, the only female main crew member, if you don't really count her mother, who is working for the bad guy, the department. But here we actually get a focus, and it actually plays into character moments that we've seen throughout the K9 series. And that is, she is an inspiring rebellionist character. In fact, the first scene we get is Jodie, Starkey and K9 just going around there having a day, enjoying themselves. I was going to bring up the fact that, K9 is supposed to be on the run, is in danger, and yet he's just walking around. But then I remembered in the last episode, the that is all finished. Technically, K9 is still technically now working for the department in some way, shape or form, thanks to Jodie's mother basically pardoning him, or at least keeping him obligatedly away from the department, and has some sort of this like alliance with them, and in return K9 is not going to be hunted by the other department, the Department of Defense, from the department. It's really, I know. But whilst they're walking around, they actually see this girl protesting from CCPC, which are the robot police, as I call them, the Robocops, the violence that they have been causing. Now, this is where the budget shows, where it's where you have this protest and it's supposed to be like a protest. However, it's just one girl in the middle of nowhere, in this alleyway where nobody except for her and these cops are. Who was she supposed to get her message out from? It doesn't make a lick of sense. She's just there with tape over her mouth, basically a symbol of being silent, which is kind of poignant. That like recently we've had the Black Lives Matters, and we've had all of these protests for good, like the Black Lives Matter, and for ill, like what happened with the White House last year. But so yeah, it's saying, there's this character. The incident that basically kicks off the story is that this girl is protesting, and the cops basically, they cause violence. They basically like drag her and push her. They don't really do anything apart from really pull her, and she's like, just get off me and stuff. Starkey decides to record it and decides that the best course of action is record this violence and then get it publicly so people can see, and they can start being seen, see the department for what they really are, a violent, abusive organisation. However, Jodie wants to get in. She was like, no, we can't just let the girl be abused, get attacked. We have to get in, and we have to step up to the cops. And it's like, no, our heads, we might be free for the moment from the department, but we are on a thin rope. Your mother is the reason we are basically enjoying this freedom for the moment, why I'm free, why K9's free. If we upset that balance, we could be again on the run again. But Jodie is, she's determined. So she picks up this rock and she throws it at one of the Robocops. And that is our inciting incident. And that is what kicks off the story, is basically our characters dealing with the fact that Jodie has done this. She has become this rebellious character. And despite the dialogue being awful, I mean, no disrespect to Deborah Parsons, like the dialogue throughout most of the stories, I'm going to just presume she didn't have a lot of time to write the story, and that's why we and something went wrong as well in terms of like time and budgetary and stuff. So I'm not going to put any blame on writers and directors here. I guess you could say the producer's fault. I don't know. But anyway, but it's an idea. It's something that we characters can work on, and we can relate to her because, they are in a situation where it's horrible, and in the real world, that does kind of reflect the real world and how, like, protests can be silenced and stuff and be impressed, and you feel like you've just got to stand up, but sometimes standing up can make you seem like the bad guy from a lot of people's point of view, including her friends. That is a really great and interesting idea, and a really great premise. A very simple premise, an idea which has been done before on multiple occasions, but it is a really good, decent idea. And yes, K9, has an idea. It has something going for it. Whoopee! I'm just so glad that this series has finally delivered a decent episode, because after that we get this really strange cut where like Jodie is like she's talking to all of the mates, and Professor Griffiths is just like, oh, I forgot to mention the RoboCops unleashed this gun with this stone, which I can't believe they call it the neutralizer. This new weapon, and they're trying to work out what it is. And when the RoboCops try to fire it, it gets destroyed. The stone just explodes, and the weapon is decided as a failure by the department, by the head of defense. I keep forgetting his name. He does have a name. He's a character. He has appeared throughout a few episodes in the series, but I keep forgetting his name. I'm just going to call him the bad guy. So we have this really strange edit where we go from Jodie talking to her friends, and then Professor Griffiths is like, "How dare you? We are on a thin line. It's thanks to your mother that we're enjoying his freedom, that I can be able to work on K9 without the risk of people taking him away and dismantling him, and you basically picking up the rock and fighting puts us in a very vulnerable decision." And even Starkey agrees with Professor Griffiths. And Jodie gets down, and we have this scene where she's talking to her mother in the bed, which is a really sweet scene for K9, in which like the mother's like, "How dare you become reckless? It's that boy, isn't it?" And she's just like, "Well, for once, that boy, Starkey, he is agreeing with you." It's like, "Oh, that's a change." And it's like, there's this kind of like not seeing eye to eye between parent and daughter. Something very similar to Sarah Jane and Luke in the episode The Mona Lisa's Revenge, which we just talked about in the last episode of the vlog series. So that's, we get some really interesting, but there's this really strange moment where the mother's at work, she's talking to the bad guy, and the bad guy's just like, "I have an idea, send her to this school. It's known for making pupils become better, become more disciplined." It then cuts to 2 weeks later, and Jodie just walks in the school uniform and is like introducing herself. It feels really odd. Like, it just seems like a really abrupt. They mention the fact that she's it's not even like there's this scene where we think about it, where there's this decision to make. It's the bad guy going, "I've heard about this school. This school is good for bringing children to reel them in." Cuts to the daughter then going to the school. And then basically the story from this point out basically becomes K9 meets Mean Girls. And from that premise, this story is awesome. We see Jodie getting in school, and she meets up with actually the rebellious girl that we met earlier on in the episode. But she seems to be a bit more broken down. She tries to warn Jodie of certain elements of the school, but she seems to be slowly integrated into this school. But she's kind of like still fed up with it. And there's these like really weird pupils who are basically the Rachel George in this story, but like it's the plastic, shall we say? In fact, they do actually call them plastic. I believe she actually calls them plastic at one point, which. That's just hilarious. These group of girls, but basically they do everything perfect to the school. They answer all the questions. They act really polite. They're very disciplined in terms of how the department wants them. And they always act the same. They always do this. And the rebellious girl that we met earlier on in the episode is like, whatever you do, don't put the bracelet on that they're all wearing. And when Geordie tries to say, example, just get up and leave, or try and text Starkey to say something's weird, there's actually a zapper that zaps her wrist, and she gets a mark. And at this point, you realise this school is a very abusive place to be. That is a very interesting idea. Now, this is what I want to talk about, not really the directing. I think the directing is still pretty, not bad, but mediocre for a Doctor Who series. You can definitely tell this was made in Britain. But what I find interesting is that for all of the episodes so far, K9 has had this distinct, very, very distinct look with the same sets and same looking environments through the majority of the episodes. Here, with the school, with certain alleyways, and only a handful of scenes at Professor Griffiths' house, this episode looks the most different. Not that doesn't look like K9, the rest of the series, but it feels less tight on its visual style. It feels a bit more loose, and just simply on that fact, this is the best looking episode as of yet. It looks very different. You really get the Mean Girl vibe in this story with the school and stuff. They say Mean Girls, but you've got this school uniform that they all wear, and you've got them in these very comprehensive school looking buildings and environments, and it just looks different, and I really appreciate it for doing that, especially after the previous episodes. But like I said, and as like you've realised by now, K9 is hardly in it. After the weapon failed at the start of the episode, pieces of the debris hit K9, and Professor Griffiths is trying to fix K9, and K9 is analysing the stone that the department's Robocops tried to fire on it, and it turns out the crystals are from the planet Ceres, where they actually mind control people. They come from a planet which K9 gives this backstory of, which I do like, that we actually get a visual to this, that you get like a demonstration of it, where they basically explain that on this planet there are basically two types of people thanks to this mineral that allows you to mind control people, the masters and the slaves. And when this crystal is activated, it makes the slaves basically really fascinated with the other person, or like the stone makes you really fascinated with each other to the point where you will do everything with each other and obey. And this caused such a relaxed nature on the planet in some ways, that they're too focused on themselves, that they completely didn't see that there was a giant meteor ready to destroy the planet. That is hilarious. But the bit of debris has been falling through space through thousands and thousands of eons, and a piece of it landed on Earth, and the department are using this alien mineral to actually mind control. That's what they've actually put on the bracelets, with the main girl, the main nice girl in the school, being seemingly this leader who can get everybody to act the way she wants to. And I also like just how separated Georgia is from the rest of the characters in the story. The writing, despite, like I said, with the dialogue and stuff, the actual writing in terms of the plot and the structure makes you really feel for her in terms of her desolation from everyone else. You genuinely feel like she's alone. Everybody seems to be against her. Her mother, even Starkey and the professor, where there's a great moment where she's talking about like her day in school and how she's basically trying to tell them that she's been abused, she got zapped, and it's not fair. I just had this horrible day, and the professor tries to lecture to her, and it's like, you shouldn't be risking yourself. You could have made it far worse. You could have had the department come into my house and take K9. And then when she's like, calm down, I've had a terrible day. The professor does kind of calm down because he's a very timid person. He tries to like keep himself. And Starkey is just like, yeah, you had your first day in a public school. You have such a terrible life, to make her feel like she's really privileged. And she is really separated here. And when she tries to talk to her mother about it, her mother is the one that got her there. So when her mother asks how was your first day, she just kind of, yeah, it's okay, and she does try to fight. It's like just breaking the will. It's just like she basically discusses her mother about like how the department just breaks your will until you just do what they want you to do, and that's basically what the school is programming these kids to do: to not rebel, to not do anything outside the norm, to be same, to be similar. And when Georgia comes back into the school, she noticed that her friend, the rebel character from earlier on, she seems very strange, and she seems to be very up her bum and very like everyone else in the school. And then Georgina realizes that she's got the stone as well, and so she tries to contact Starkey to come to the school to basically help her research this. There is a weird scene. This is the scene I was talking about earlier on, which made me feel very uncomfortable, and I have no idea if it was intentional or not. There's a scene where the girls are talking with the plastics, as we will call them, the one that everyone looks up to in the school, and she says like, "Oh, you got an amazing smile," and then her like henchmen say the same thing, and then she laughs, and then we cut to her laughing on a camera as if like we're watching somebody watching her laughing, which turns out to be the main bad guy, the evil guy, and he's like, make the pitch higher. And she laughs again with a higher pitch, make it higher. And she does like this really like squeaky, and then he's like, that's perfect. And then that scene just ends. What the hell was that all about? Was he just playing with the recording? Was Georgina there watching this girl repeat the laugh, but like make it like the pitch like really higher? So was Georgina there watching this girl going, if so, that's incredibly creepy. What is up with this guy? Why did he want her to sound unnatural? Wasn't the whole point is like she blends in and manipulates everyone else so that they can do his bidding? Why would he want her to have this very unofficial voice? I know it's just a scene, but it's so weird, it's so out of place, and I absolutely love it. I don't know what that's about, but it's literally the only thing I can think about after watching the episode. It makes you feel really uncomfortable, especially when you're dealing with a middle-aged, just a younger than middle-aged man. He looks like he's easily in his like 30s, 40s if we're being disingenuous. Giving instructions to this girl on the camera who is clearly a teenager, younger than 18, and making her squeaky voice to his bidding. for his own satisfaction, for what we can gather. That really is uncomfortable. And it's just so, but it's the only thing I can think about, and it's so off, it's so odd put in that when it happens, I was like, the hell did I just watch? I had to literally, I did, like, rewind it and watch that scene a few times, and then watched it again after I finished the episode. Because what the hell was that all about? I don't know if you can find it on YouTube, but if you can, see if you can find that episode. If I can find that scene on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description. But my God, that is just really bizarre. But trying to get off that, the story actually has something to say. It's, you know, it's everybody basically getting beaten down. I mean, it's to mind control, but it's basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets Mean Girls, and where all these characters are now starting acting weird and strange and seemingly in this pyramid of archetypes, with Georgina basically being this rebel character, and she tries to fight it. And I really like some of the parallels in this story. For example, as K9 is explaining, earlier on we see Starkey, he basically falls in love with the previously rebel character, now being mind controlled by the bad guy, and he's like emotionally like connected to her, thinking he's in love, and she tries to write poems her, and K9 is explaining that what this crystal does is that it makes one of the part of the crystal's ability is that it makes people around the wearer just absolutely fascinated with them, and that like you can't turn away. It makes you want to basically be mind controlled, and so and then whilst that's going on, the plastics in the episode offer Georgina a bracelet. And you see her, she does kind of fight it, she is kind of like fascinated, and she picks it up and she's like, oh, thank you. And then when they tell her to put it on, she's just like, no. But then just after asking again, she puts it on, and then she starts acting very strange like everybody else. She is under the mind control. So those scenes paralleling back to back, that is some really great editing and really great storytelling right there. I'm praising an episode of K9. What is going on? Do I need to find a criticism? I can, with the weird obsession this story has with the girls, because one of the aspects that this story does with the girls when they're mind controlled, mind you, only the girls get mind controlled, is that they become extremely flirty with the boy characters, with the previously rebel character flirting with Starkey, and Georgina, when mind controlled, becomes extremely flirty with Darren, the Professor Griffiths' assistant. I don't know what this story has with the girls. It feels very uncomfortable, and I don't know who to blame. But see, at least someone needs to blame, because this story is just weird. And K9 detects this mineral on Georgina, and K9 zaps it on the bracelet and destroys the crystal, and so Georgina's free, and they basically come up with this idea. They need to find a new source, so they basically give Georgina a fake bracelet to pretend that she's one of them still. Ask them that, you know, oh, my mother would like a bracelet. Can I get another one so that my mother can, so I can give it my mother? But the bad guys quickly realise they're on to us, or at least he thinks that her mother is on to her, because the mother character doesn't actually know at this point. Her and the bad guy, they have kind of like they work together, they're colleagues, but they don't trust each other, and despite them working for an evil organisation, the bad guy is clearly like the more evil of the two. Whilst Georgina's mother is basically like, this is a job. As much as it's horrible and evil, it's still my job. I do kind of believe what we're doing, but there is like sense of doubt. And then the story kind of abruptly ends with K9 just coming in and just zaps all the crystals, destroying, freeing everybody, with the exception of Georgina George character in the story, which actually turns out to be an android, which the main villain was using to control everybody else, because that's how the crystal works. You need like it becomes like a symbiotic mind control relationship, and using a robot, he can then be free to mind control everybody without it affecting him. That ending is really anticlimactic, and I really wasn't buying the ending with the resolution with Starkey. He kind of feels bad and down because that girl had no memory of fancying him, of their connection, and he basically gets really down with it. I didn't feel a connection, and I didn't buy it at all. But that is Sirens of Ceres. It's a decent episode. It's nothing special if it was in any other show. It's still like stuff you've seen 100 times. It's still a majority of it is boring and dull, with a few funny, unintentionally funny moments and overacting that keeps it a bit amusing. But this story actually has something to say. It has a meaning, it has an idea. You can actually feel the writers going, okay, we have an idea, we have a plot, we know where we want to take our characters, we want to tell a story. We finally have it. A decent K9 episode. That's all I want. Just to say that, this series, if you're really, 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 really interested, this episode is probably the best one so far. Hopefully there'll be more to come, but I'm not holding hopes. I mean, there have been some episodes I have actually recommended previously, but maybe due to ironic senses, or just the fact that they were a bit more in my what I was thinking about this series, knowing how not so good it is. But this episode generally surprised me. It's decent. It's not bad. It's not good. It's decent. And if you're interested in this show, if you want to give it out, this is probably the best you're gonna get. So there you go. That's a sign of Ceres. So join me next time when the Doctor goes to investigate one of the greatest conspiracy theories in human history. So join me next time for Dreamland, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!